Imagine a world where one phone call or a single radar glitch could trigger the total annihilation of human civilization. For 45 years, this wasn't the plot of a science fiction movie. It was the everyday reality for billions of people. From the shadows of Berlin to the jungles of Vietnam, two superpowers held the world hostage in a silent, freezing war. But how did allies become enemies? And why are the echoes of this conflict returning to haunt us today? The Cold War was never a single battle. It was a global struggle for the soul of humanity, democracy versus communism. It redefined borders, fueled the space race, and pushed technology to its absolute limit, all under the threat of mutually assured destruction. To understand where we are now, in an era of renewed tension, we must look back at the moment the world split in two. The seeds were sown in the ruins of World War II. In 1945, as the Nazi regime crumbled, the victors met to carve up the map. The Yalta Conference was supposed to bring peace, but it only highlighted a deep-seated mistrust between the East and the West. Stalin wanted a buffer zone of friendly states to protect the USSR. The West wanted free elections and open markets. By 1946, Winston Churchill famously declared that an Iron Curtain had descended across the continent. The Truman Doctrine soon followed, establishing that the United States would support any nation resisting communist subversion. This was the birth of Containment, a policy designed to stop the spread of Soviet influence at any cost. The first major flashpoint was Berlin. In 1948, Stalin blocked all land routes into the western-held sectors of the city. The West responded with the Berlin airlift, flying in thousands of tons of supplies every single day to keep the city alive. It was a massive logistical triumph that proved the West would not blink. But the tension was only just beginning. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb, ending the American nuclear monopoly. The arms race was officially on. Both sides began stockpiling weapons capable of destroying the planet many times over. Then came October 1962, the 13 days that brought the world to the very edge of the abyss. U.S. spy planes discovered Soviet nuclear missiles being installed in Cuba, just 90 miles from the Florida coast. President John F. Kennedy faced an impossible choice: invade and risk world war, or do nothing and face a nuclear threat. For nearly 2 weeks, the world held its breath as a naval blockade surrounded the island and B-52 bombers took to the skies. In the Kremlin, Nikita Khrushchev was equally pressured. One wrong move by a local commander could trigger a launch. In the end, a secret deal was struck. The Soviets removed their missiles from Cuba, and the U.S. later removed theirs from Turkey. This was the ultimate turning point. It forced both sides to realize that a direct conflict was unwinnable and unthinkable. But the war didn't end, it just moved into the shadows. This was the era of the proxy war. In Korea and Vietnam, the superpowers fought indirectly, backing opposite sides with money, weapons, and troops. These conflicts cost millions of lives and scarred entire generations, yet neither side ever officially declared war on the other. Simultaneously, the battle for supremacy moved beyond Earth. The space race became a symbol of ideological superiority. When Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface in 1969, it wasn't just a giant leap for mankind, it was a score for the West. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union's economy was buckling under the weight of military spending and internal corruption. President Ronald Reagan upped the ante with his Star Wars missile defense program, challenging the USSR to a race they couldn't afford. A new Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, realized the system had to change. He introduced glasnost and perestroika, openness and restructuring. But the hunger for freedom was too strong to contain. In 1989, the unthinkable happened: the Berlin Wall fell. In a matter of months, communist regimes across Eastern Europe collapsed, mostly peacefully, as the people reclaimed their nations. On Christmas Day, 1991, the Soviet flag was lowered over the Kremlin for the last time. The Cold War was over. The West celebrated a victory for history, but the world that emerged was far more complex than many anticipated. So, why does this matter now? Because history doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes. Today, we see the rise of a new Cold War, with tensions between the US, Russia, and an increasingly powerful China. The weapons have changed, from nuclear warheads to cyber attacks, AI, and trade wars, but the underlying struggle remains. The old alliances of NATO are being tested again, and the map of Europe is once more a site of active conflict. The lessons of the 20th century are more relevant than ever. We learned that communication is the only thing that prevents catastrophe. We learned that ideology can blind us to our shared humanity, and that peace is often a fragile balance of power. As we navigate a new era of global competition, we must ask ourselves, are we doomed to relive the mistakes of the past? Or can we find a way to coexist in a world that is more interconnected, yet more divided, than ever before? The Cold War was a period of fear, but also of incredible human achievement. It shaped the world we live in today. From the internet to GPS, much of our modern life was born from the competition of two giants. The story of the Cold War is not just a history lesson, it is a blueprint for our future survival. In the end, the wall fell not because of a bomb, but because of the persistent desire for freedom and human connection. If you found this deep dive into history valuable, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that shape our world. What do you think? Are we in a second Cold War, or is this something entirely new? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, history is the only way to see the future clearly. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one. Looking further into the 1970s, the period of détente offered a brief thaw in the icy relations. They signed the SALT treaties, aiming to limit the number of nuclear missiles each side possessed. But the peace was short-lived. The 1979 Soviet invasion of Afghanistan reignited the fire. The US responded by boycotting the 1980 Moscow Olympics, turning the world of sports into a political battlefield. The conflict in Afghanistan became the Soviet Union's Vietnam, a quagmire that drained their resources and morale. In the West, pop culture was saturated with the fear of the big one, from movies like War Games to The Day After. This cultural anxiety defined the music, the art, and the very fashion of the era. Ultimately, the Cold War was a test of endurance, a marathon that lasted nearly half a century. It ended not with a bang, but with a whisper, the soft sound of paper being signed and walls being chipped away. The legacy of those decades is built into the very architecture of our current international organizations. The struggle for influence continues in the digital realm, where information warfare is the new frontline. Every tweet, every leaked document, and every hack is a shot fired in a war that never truly went away. As we look to the stars once more, with plans for Mars and lunar bases, the race begins anew. History is the compass that helps us navigate these uncertain waters. By learning from the Cold War, we can avoid the heat of a third. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the coldest chapter of the 20th century. Check out our other documentaries on the screen now to dive deeper into the events that made our world. The world is a complex place, but together, we can make sense of it, one story at a time.